So before we even jump into this video, I wanted to call out all of this fall decor I have here. So we have some nice ceramic pumpkins, we have 2 pumpkin spice candles, and we have an orange table runner to really bring that fall aesthetic. And something you can't really see is a stunning pumpkin pillow. Anyway, for this video, I wanted to cover the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I originally wasn't even planning on making this video. I thought that the iPhone 14 Pro Max was way too similar to the iPhone 13 Pro that I had last year, that I thought it didn't really warrant an entire video with only a couple quality of life improvements and the new dynamic island. But after 2 months of using it since I got this phone on launch day, I figured it might be good to make a video just covering my thoughts and opinions, pros and cons, and how I feel towards it compared to my 13 Pro. Anyway, let's go ahead and start this video off with what I actually use my iPhone for, since I feel like it would help frame the video more of my perspective towards this device. So I use my phone for literally everything, as probably most of you do, but even a couple more niche use cases that I think majority of people don't really maximize the potential for. So one of the major things I use my phone for is media consumption, and that spreads all the way from YouTube, Instagram, social media in general, all the way over to gaming and reading as well. For gaming on this device, I actually use an external controller that I go ahead and connect to the Lightning port here. It's called the Razer Kishi. I'll pull it out later in the video just to give you an overview of it, but it really helps for immersion and the experience of gaming on this device, which I'll admit is a new addition for my iPhone use case. Also, reading on this device, I switched from a Kindle recently, and I've been using the Apple Books app and the Kindle app just to go ahead and try reading on this device, and I finished so far 2 or 3 books on here, which is more than I've read in the past like 3 years. So I'd say that it's a really good use case for reading as well. So my mentality has sort of shifted in the past couple of years of how I use my device. And in the past, I really wanted to spend as little time as possible, sort of minimizing the screen time on this device because I felt like it was just a distraction. But I've sort of accepted the fact that these are now truly a part of our everyday lives for anything that we do. And it's better to just maximize the potential, reduce distractions on it, rather than try and just get rid of the device as a whole. My screen time is absolutely brutal, but I like to tell myself that it's spent doing productive things, so I don't really feel as bad about myself by using this. So because of all of my use cases on this phone, I figured let me benefit by the bigger screen. I upgraded from the 13 Pro last year to the 14 Pro Max this year, and I do have some thoughts on the size, but spoiler, I wish I could just go back to a regular size phone. I definitely don't need my wrist strain and my hands getting tired every time I use this device. Anyway, this phone being in my pocket basically 24/7 has made me carry my iPad less too, and really reserve my iPad and MacBook for tasks that I can't do at all on my phone, whether that be video editing or using the Apple Pencil or note-taking. Those key workflows still obviously can't be done on this, but this really manages almost everything else I do on a day-to-day basis and doesn't require me to carry around any other device. And that in part why the extra screen real estate is beneficial, going back to why I switched to the Pro Max this year. Side note, I actually have a video coming out on how I use this iPad, updated for the end of 2022, since my use case really shifted with how I use my Mac, my iPhone, and my iPad, so look forward to that video as well. But that about covers everything I do on my phone on a day-to-day basis. It really varies from media consumption to using the cameras on my phone to maybe record quick clips or B-roll for my YouTube channel, social media, other distractions, basically anything that I use a laptop for, barring video editing or more intense workflows. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the pros for this device, and the first pro definitely has to be the display on this guy. Now, regarding the display, there is one key feature I want to touch on that you could obviously see right now, and that is the dynamic island. Now, the dynamic island is cool. There's no doubt about that. Is it game-changing? Absolutely not. But the way that Apple integrated it into the display and the overall UI and how the iPhone functions is something that is really impressive. There are all of the stock Apple apps that take advantage of this, whether it be your timers, your music app, phone calls, or anything of the sort. This does it really, really well with utilizing the dynamic island. I love that when I'm listening to music, I can go ahead and like long tap on it to pull up the UI for the music. It's all just really, really well integrated. The wow factor does go away after a while, but that's with any new feature. But this is a feature that I am still consistently using on a day-to-day basis. The only downside is that it cuts into media consumption typically, and it actually takes up a bit more space, it seems, than the normal notch style on other devices. But regardless, it is still a really cool feature to have. It's nice to see Apple trying to do something new. While it's not, game-changing, still super impressive. Now, the much cooler feature of the display, in my opinion, is the always-on display. And that is made possible due to some enhancements Apple made with the technology for their display. My understanding is that the refresh rate can now drop all the way down to 1 Hz, which means that you are not consistently refreshing the display constantly eating the battery life, 60 times a second, 120 times a second, rather just one time per second, and you're able to keep the screen on, see the time, see notifications pop up, and it just enhances the usability of how people use their iPhone on a day-to-day basis. I know that for me, whenever I'm doing work on my computer or something, I'll have my phone propped up and I'll just have the always on display active. So that way, whenever a notification comes in or whenever I have a timer going, I could see the key information at all times without having to tap on my screen and consistently open it up, check the time, close it back. It just eliminates a lot of that redundancy, I feel like, when you're using your device. I personally wish that the always on display could be darker. I think it still is too bright at times, but if you use your phone at night and you use the sleep mode or use do not disturb, it does turn off the display when those features are on, so you don't have to worry about light emitting from your phone all night long. I also just love the display as a whole. And I say that coming from a 13 Pro, which already had such an amazing display. But one other feature they added to this is the fact that the outdoor brightness or peak brightness is much higher than last generation, meaning that if you ever had issues seeing your phone outdoors, which I personally never have in the past few years, you definitely won't have that issue anymore using this device. It gets so insanely bright. Super good on that front. Also, one of the key use cases, reading, that I do on my phone all the time now as opposed to reading physical books, is just enhanced so much more. The display can get really, really dark as I believe it uses an OLED panel, so blacks are truly black as the display is just turned off in those regions, and it really reduces the eye strain on my eyes when reading on this device. I finished a few books this year, more books than I've read in the past few years, and that really is due to the fact that I have this phone on me all the time and I'm able to use it essentially whenever, since it's just living in my pocket. Now, another pro I want to talk about is the performance of this device. Now, I'm not going to dive into specs like I said, but the usability and the performance of this, I have never noticed any downsides to it for the past 2 months that I've been using it. And I've utilized a decent amount of this phone, even going into like very heavy gaming on Apex Legends Mobile or Call of Duty Mobile. Never experienced any latency, any downsides running those games at 120 frames per second. So while most of you probably aren't doing any intense gaming on your phone, I have, and I can tell you that the performance here is on par with my 13 Pro, which already had those games running at full speeds without no hiccups or any issues. One cool thing about the iPhone 14 Pro Max that I noticed more so than my 13 Pro is that this device does not get hot as frequently as my 13 Pro. And that might be due to the new chip or, enhancements on that front, but yeah, this device I never feel get hot, while my 13 Pro did start to burn me a little bit when running those games at full frames per second or full resolution or quality. Okay, now cameras are a soft spot for me since I am a content creator. I've owned a camera for like maybe the past 8 years of my life. I love using cameras and I've been waiting for the day that iPhones could replace my mirrorless camera that I'm using to shoot this video right now. The new cameras on the 14 Pro Max are stunning. I won't say that they're game-changing compared to my old 13 Pro, but there are a couple of enhancements that they made to these cameras that do just make them overall a little bit better or a little bit more cinema-like, getting to the future state of where you only need to use an iPhone for making really professional-grade quality videos. Now, one cool addition that I personally am waiting to get expanded upon is cinematic mode. Cinematic mode now on the 14 Pro Maxes can be done in 4K, which is one of my major negatives with using my 13 Pro cinematic mode. And it's just really cool to see enhancements being made to cinematic mode since I think that that is a really cool feature. It's essentially portrait mode in video that I've been wishing I had for such a long time, and it makes the quality of video look really good. Now, it still doesn't do well with hair or if people have, longer hair. It blurs out certain strands. It looks still really weird. But now that it can be done in 4K, it at least makes it a bit more usable than trying to shoot in 1080p on cinematic mode, which was really rough to do before. We also have the ProRes photo capture, which I've tried using a couple times, but the size of files for that mode are ridiculously high, and I just really can't warrant 80 or 100 megabyte videos, but I'm sure other people will definitely use that feature to its fullest potential. This is still the lowest storage size, so I believe it's 128 gigs. I can't be using like 1/100th of my space for a single photo. It's just not gonna happen. There was also another really big enhancement to the front-facing camera of this iPhone as well, and that is the introduction of autofocus. So there are times now where I actually think that the front-facing camera looks even better than the rear-facing camera, but I'll let you be the judge of that. Let me swap over right now to the rear-facing camera to show you guys sort of what each of them look like. So what you were just seeing was the front-facing camera. This is now the rear-facing camera. Let me know your thoughts. I think personally that the front-facing camera looks a lot more pleasing. I think this is way too over-sharpened and oversampled, but again, all to perception, so let me know what you guys think. Overall, the camera system on this phone is incredible, and it's only going to get better in 5, 10 years in the future. And I'm really excited to see what Apple is able to do with their camera system and see if it really could replace my use case for a camera and shooting these videos. I know for a lot of people it does, and I know that Marques Brownlee, with the new channel he made reviewing cars, uses an iPhone exclusively. I still love the quality of, more professional cameras, so I won't be doing that anytime soon. But having the flexibility is definitely nice as the camera system gets improved year over year. Okay, I do want to close this video out by talking about a couple cons for this, and I'll run through them really quick because I think I spent a lot of time talking about the pros. One major con is USB-C. I do not understand why USB-C is still not on the iPhones. Lightning is just a very inferior connector port, and I wish I can carry around USB-C everywhere and not have to carry that Lightning cable also wherever I go. It's not even about just having USB-C to not carry Lightning, but it's also the flexibility that USB-C brings. Lightning is inherently, from nowadays standards, a slow connector. And it's just about time that we upgrade to a standardized port. Everyone can have USB-C. I know that the EU is pushing this, but it's still gonna be a couple of years out. I just wish that Apple would take the initiative, upgrade everything to USB-C. Their MacBooks use it, their iPads use it. It's about time that their iPhones use it as well. Another con that I stated earlier in this video is the notch on this device. Dynamic Island is cool, don't get me wrong, but putting it offset from the top does actually increase the amount of size that the notch takes, and it makes watching certain video content, especially widescreen video content, look really weird on this device because it sort of cuts in just a little bit into the content. And if you were to zoom it into full screen, having a bubble just in the middle looks a lot weirder than having a notch that sort of blends into the rest of the bezels of the phone. Still a cool feature. I still love the enhancement, but it irks me at times knowing that they did end up making this an even bigger nuisance on the display. Finally, the last point that I want to touch on is the weight. And this phone is really freaking heavy. I've been using it for almost 2 months now, and I can't count the number of times that I've been holding it in my hands and my wrist genuinely starts hurting, or my pinky starts hurting from putting it underneath the phone. It is just really a heavy phone, and I want Apple to go back to lighter materials. I'm not sure what they're using now, but it's just over the past few years, these phones have been getting heavier and heavier, and they're definitely not small devices. I carry these in my pocket consistently. These do not go in my bag. I carry them in one hand when I'm using it. It's just not comfortable sometimes to use this device. And I think that next year or in the next coming years, Apple should look to start using lighter materials in their devices while also keeping the same durability. In closing, it is really a great device. If you're upgrading from a 13 line, maybe a 13, 13 Pro, 13 Pro Max, definitely do not recommend getting this. It really is no different than the 13 Pro, barring the Dynamic Island and some camera improvements. But if you are a tech enthusiast, if you love having the latest technology, trade-in values are really high. Carrier deals are crazy. It is definitely a good buy to get. And knowing that you're gonna get a lot of years out of this device if you don't upgrade every single year or every couple of years. So, do I recommend upgrading if you're on an older device? Probably. It seems like it could be a really good, just quality of life improvement overall if you use your device consistently. But if you're on a maybe 12 Pro, 13 Pro, might not be worth it for this generation. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving the video a like and consider subscribing, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.